All right, here we go. Here we are. Welcome, viewers. We are here for our Enterprise Connect wrap up. It's good to be back. I love live streaming, and a couple weeks without it, I'm like itching to get back on screen with you all. I'm joined here. My usual co-host Tim is on a well-deserved vacation, so I got a good one. I got Kevin Kieller. Keller. Am I pronouncing your name right?
It's
Right?
Keeler. There you go.
Keeler.
We should practice that.
I had it right, and then at the moment when it mattered, I doubted it. But Kevin, could you please introduce yourself? Though I think everyone watching knows you, but just in case.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kevin Kieller. I am the co-founder of Enable UC, and in that role, I'm kind of half consultant, half analyst. So help vendors on the analyst side understand. Mostly, I focus on the Microsoft ecosystem, and certainly for large enterprises, putting on my consultant hat, I help them, develop strategies and kind of navigate that. And then I have also taken over the leadership role of BC Strategies, which David, you're a member of. So an elite group of independent consultants and analysts that have all kinds of expertise in this particular space. I think at Enterprise Connect, delivered something like 19 sessions. I think I actually lost count, but most of the non-sponsored sessions, I think the majority of them were delivered by BC Strategies experts. So those are the two roles that keep me busy most days.
And I really appreciate you inviting me to join BC Strategies. One of the things I love about it so far is we meet every month with as many of the group as can be there. And I'm in a meeting with like 20 of like my favorite analysts that I've been following for years and years and years, and learning so much from them. It's a really great experience. So thank you for that. And while we're here, speaking of thank yous, I want to we have MaxHub, one of Let's Do Video sponsors, who we did see at Enterprise Connect, and I just wanted to thank them for helping out with the show. Please check them out at Google MaxHub. And so let's start. We have on our big screen here, I already have it dropped down. The topic of the day is Enterprise Connect. So I was going to say I don't know where to start, but I know where to start. We have to start with ChatGPT, don't we?
Yeah, I think, certainly AI, and specifically ChatGPT was sprinkled on everything at Enterprise Connect this year. So
for sure.
I think all the keynotes found a way to connect themselves with AI, and really, say that they're deep into AI. So, I don't know that everybody can be equally as deep, but they certainly all pitched their case, and that was also on the show floor. Not all of the booths, but a lot of them were connected to some form of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, everyone was talking AI, and everyone was excited about it. It is a lot of times we have a buzz in the industry that we want to get excited about something, but it's not all that exciting. But this really is exciting. I was talking to Erwin Lazar, who is one of the analysts in this space that I just like. He's so smart, it's ridiculous.
He is. And
we were in a podcast yesterday, and he was talking about how it really was mind blowing when you see, and they all have it, but whether it's a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or a WebEx meeting, you come out of it and there's this summary, and right. And I mentioned to him, like, the thing that's weird is we've had the summaries themselves for years now. It's been like 5 years since Blue Jeans had smart meetings, but for some reason when you end the meeting and you type /summary and it says bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, it's like, that's helpful. But when you join a meeting late and a bot says, "Oh, David, you're late. You need to know you missed this. It was really important," and it sounds like a person, it's mind blowing, even though it's the same information.
Well, and I think the thing is as well, for people that are excited about this, and I think the excitement is broader than just the kind of the technology people that follow this space. So I think that's one of the interesting things about ChatGPT is that it really has created excitement, outside of the analysts and the consultants that follow this space every day.
Yeah, it's bigger than our space.
But I do think, Brent Kelly and I delivered the multicast, living in the multicast session where we looked at Ring Central and Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams and kind of compared and contrast them. I mean, certainly we looked at the AI piece, and the thing is these summaries, um, they're more aspirational. So, a lot of what was shown in the keynotes is where the vendors aspire to take us as opposed to what's available today. So, I'd say, look for yourself, be excited. And I think that AI is going to be the key differentiator for these UCaaS suites, because they've all, they all have so many features now. And when we looked at, them, like they all do great video and great audio, and, they use AI to help do those things. But they have so many features that the typical user isn't taking advantage of.
Mm.
But I do think that this AI piece, specifically the generative AI, like as you said, you joined the meeting late. What have I missed? I think in the Microsoft keynote they said, "What's the mood of the meeting?"
Yeah,
And
you
in the
could.
example that Nicole Herskowitz showed off, it was like, "Oh, the meeting's tense because whatever, Kevin and David can't agree on the date for the product launch." I mean, and that's fantastic, but that is still capability that is rolling out. I think it's going to roll out, faster than
Well,
some people think.
there was a big debate on Twitter about this because some of our fellow analysts, people were saying, boy, all those fake demos at Chat AI, obviously it was typed in beforehand and it was processed because it was too perfect. And Ilya, Microsoft says, I got proof. I got video.
Right.
We did it on the spot. Ours was real. So
Well, and that's the
Microsoft
thing,
is
right?
saying that their summary, it was they did it right then, and the perfect Chat GPT-ish response that came out, that was legit. The others aren't all claiming that their demos were actual live demos, but I just don't want to get in trouble with Ilya.
No, and I think that's the thing. So some of it is aspirational, and some of it is here today. I think the Microsoft Copilot, they said we're testing it with 20 organizations, so it's a very small kind of initial close, kind of closed beta. But this is to my point. I think some of these things are going to advance into public preview, then general availability a lot faster than many people may think.
Yeah.
And some of them are wonderful, marketing tools. And I think that they are kind of this North Star vision. So for example, having a video assistant is, I think, longer in the future. But Cisco did a really good job of showing that in their keynote, and I think all of us can want that type of assistant that can do all of those things for us. And I don't think that these are ridiculous claims, and but I also think that that's not coming in 2023.
Not all of it will, but I think some of it will. I
Oh,
think some of it
absolutely.
is.
Some of it will.
It's happening
Yes.
so much faster than it was. I never heard of Chat GPT, and now we're Chat GPT 4, 5, 6. It's really happening fast. But that
It's not. It's
since you're
four right
you know
now.
more about
Yes.
Microsoft than me, so you're the right guy to ask about this. Which is, I'm not seeing the differentiation because they all have the same data to get from, which is the data. It's your data. It's from your meeting, so that's all equalized. And the language modeling, it's just there or it isn't. Whether it's going to whether it's going to really sound like a person who says, "Hey, this is what you missed. This is what the mood," or not. So I think they're all going to have it. And it's all going to be the same. But Microsoft is spending $10 billion on this. Zoom doesn't have $10 billion. So what is Microsoft's ChatGPT going to have that Zoom's that Zoom won't have? What are they going to get for that $10 billion? Because it seems like they're all just going to have it. What's this $10 billion going to?
Yeah. So I think that that's a great question. And so here's the thing: in the past, and even this year, people would talk about how data is the fuel for AI, right? So, and people would use the car analogy, like data is to, I don't know, gas as, but it's like gas is fuels your car, data fuels your AI. And so here's, I think, the subtle difference when Microsoft, especially a little bit in the keynote, but then before, like the week before, they talked about Copilot. Microsoft talked about grounding the query and the response using your data. And so I think the difference is, for organizations that are using the Microsoft ecosystem, your email is already in Exchange and you use Outlook, and your documents are in SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams. And so what happens is, if I say, what was David working on last week? Give me a summary of what David was working on. This concept of grounding, the Office graph, if I'm a Microsoft, if I use the Microsoft Office suite, and I think in larger organizations, like, the penetration is huge. I mean, it's like 80-90%. The Office graph says, hey, I know it's, which David you're talking about because you collaborate. So it uses that in terms of, forming the query. So, and then it has access, restricted access. It accesses the documents that I have access to be able to, generate that response. And then it grounds the results by also just, doubly verifying that this makes sense in the context of the people I collaborate with. And so absolutely, whether it's Zoom or RingCentral or WebEx or others, they could use the same large language model, but the person that wins is the person that has access to the majority of your data. And I think right now this gives Microsoft, an advantage, and arguably perhaps an unfair advantage, but there's increased pressure to put all of your data into a central store because you're going to get better AI results.
Yeah.
And I
If
think
AI
that
knows what's in my Excel spreadsheets, that AI is a lot smarter than an AI that doesn't know what's in my Excel spreadsheets.
no, well,
It's a lot of
that's
data
exactly
there.
right. So whoever you trust with your documents, and for many, many large, small, medium, and large, but certainly for the larger enterprises, I think Satya has been going for years and talking about trust in the Microsoft cloud, and trust and trust and trust. And so people have put, in all, most of their intellectual property, into the Microsoft cloud. And so then where AI can harvest this, I think that means that the Copilot that's going to be integrated into all your Office tools, Excel and Word and PowerPoint, I mean, it's going to end up being smarter, not because the model per se is smarter, but simply
It has better
because
information.
it has better information. It has the better data to feed
Yeah.
it. And that was, so while AI was sprinkled on everything, I think one of the foundational things was really around Microsoft Teams. Because, when Brent and I looked at, so we've got these, these 4 people we're looking at that are all kind of leaders in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. But the interesting thing is, Cisco in their keynote talked about how their devices, and they make great devices, but how their devices are now certified for Microsoft Teams.
That was
They didn't
big.
mention it, but also their contact center is certified for Microsoft Teams. RingCentral has a plugin for Microsoft Teams. They also deliver direct routing for Microsoft Teams. Zoom has a plugin for Microsoft Teams. And so I think while we're living in this multicast, or there was statistics, 87% of people, of organizations use 2 or more communication and collaboration tools, it's not necessarily you're using 2 or 3 equal tools. You have a primary tool,
Mm-hmm.
and then tools that deal with exceptions. And I think that what is emerging for many organizations is that primary tool is Microsoft Teams. And then maybe you use Zoom to do business to consumer, or for board meetings, or, you have Cisco devices and they're in Microsoft Teams room. But then when you natively need to join a WebEx meeting, it can do that on a fantastic basis. But so it's not really, you're using multiple tools as equals, but a primary tool and then additional tools to deal with specific use cases. And right now, it appeared to be that foundationally at Enterprise Connect 2023, everyone was touting how they integrate and play nice with, the Microsoft ecosystems, but more specifically Microsoft Teams, because they want to be part of that 280 million monthly active users, right? They want a piece of it. And that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, it almost seems unfair, but Microsoft
Yes.
Teams is part of Office 365. It just is. It just is. And so many of us are using Office 365. I don't consider myself primarily a Microsoft. I use Gmail. So am I a Google person?
Right.
I use Zoom a lot. Am I a Zoom person? But I use Office 365. Of course I do. My
Right.
PowerPoint, Excel. I mean, I have to. And so I have Teams. Of course I use Teams. I use them all, but
Right.
even if I didn't like Teams, I would have it and I would be using it. So it's almost unfair, but it is the base. The one thing I want to give Microsoft credit, though, a lot of times Microsoft gets this unfair advantage and we wind up using a product that we just don't love. They actually did a good job with Teams. Even if they weren't Microsoft, Teams would be competitive. It is a good product. So if it's being forced on us, at least it's not, at least it's on par or better than all of its competitors. Depending on what you're doing, it's better at chat than some. It's almost as good at video as others, but it's not like. I mean, I don't like Word. Sorry, Microsoft.
Oh,
Back
okay.
from the '90s, I loved WordPerfect. WordPerfect was amazing, and we were forced to switch to Word because Microsoft has that power. And this time, I don't feel like I'm being forced into Word. I'm like, okay, at least they're doing a good job with Teams.
Yeah, I think, what I really enjoyed, Brent and I spent months and months and months doing, trying to pinpoint material differences between, as I said, RingCentral, Zoom, WebEx, and Teams. And 100%, like each of those, all of those products are fantastic. And so, but they each do certain things, to your point. They each do certain things, better than others. And so in the perfect world, they would all look at what the others are doing in depth and, kind of emulate
But
and,
none of
up
them are
their
bad
game.
at anything anymore. That's a big deal. It used to be, Teams was good at chat, but it wasn't good at video. And Zoom was
Right.
good at video, but it wasn't good at chat. Now they're all pretty good at everything. Some are a little better at some things.
Right. And then that's what we started right up from the get-go. And it was like 90-minute session, right? So right from the get-go, we said, you can't lose with any of these choices, right? So because as you said, they're all fantastic and arguably they all have more features than the typical user is using anyway. So as there's this race to, just keep adding features and features and features, more importantly, I would say is, focusing on whatever you've chosen for your organization, provide the ongoing training to help your users be aware of these new features that can make their lives easier. And this is where I think AI, especially when you can just say what you want to do, I think that this may unlock access to a whole bunch of those features. Because if I, for example, I find like the Microsoft Office suite is so broad, people don't understand it includes Microsoft Forms, a survey tool. So people go out and buy another survey tool, even though they have a survey tool. And I'm hopeful that with an AI where you can say, hey, I want to do a survey of my employees to ask them about this, that Copilot inside of the Microsoft suite will say, hey, we've got Microsoft Forms and I've written a survey for you. And so it'll actually unlock some of those features that right now go unknown and unused, right? So, and I think that will be what's exciting to me about technology is it's actually making people more efficient and more effective. That's my hope.
That's the other side of the chat GPT thing that I think people aren't, that I love, that I think people aren't appreciating enough. It's not just that it responds to us in human language. We can ask it questions in dumb human language. When I ask a question to Google, I have to really think, I have to think of my Google Talk. There's a way you ask stuff in Google. It's a very halted sort of key terms, SEO. When I talk to ChatGPT, I'm like, I'm kind of thinking of a thing. I'm not sure. It's something I sort of remember, but it's sort of bluish, but it kind of green. And no matter how dumb I ask the question, it answers it. So if we're talking about things in meetings that the normal person can't figure out technically, and have to get an IT person, they know what they want. They want to move the video from this screen to this screen.
Right.
If you could say to an AI, I want to move it in normal language, it could do it for you. That brings up something. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I did want to call out because we spent a lot of time talking about Microsoft and whatever. And I think that makes sense because at Enterprise Connect, a lot of people were talking about that. But, like I thought the Google, the Google keynote and Bashad did a great job showing off some of the fantastic AI that kind of Google is developing, and some super impressive things. I mean, the
It's a
challenge,
good
as we
keynote.
talked about, is do enough people, because I use G Suite as well, right? Because I use all of them as, but are organizations willing to put as much of their corporate data, into G Suite so that it has what's going to feed, the models? And that's, I think, the trust challenge, with Google is one that they still have to overcome. But certainly, in the keynote, some fantastic advancements in AI, and they showed off in some customer experience. So I just did want to call that out because I thought that was very impressive.
It's something I'd love to see for AI. And an example of it right here, we're looking at it, is and let me bring up on the screen here. One of the things I got on the show floor, and this is just an unboxing video I did,
Hi,
is
David here with another Let's Do Video
EPOS has
unboxing and review.
a webcam.
Today we're going to be looking at the
That's
EPOS
it right there.
Expand Vision 1.
And
You're actually
so
seeing me
I did an
and hearing me on
unboxing
it
video.
right now.
It's
So
got
if
a
we go to the
cool
website,
case. It's really
just
designed to
take
be
a quick
traveling.
look.
Myself out of
We'll
the way.
see
Yeah, there it is, the webcam
list
at the price
price,
point.
and we see that it's a
And
4K
so I did this
camera,
unboxing video and I
and then
set
it's
it up.
certified from
And
Microsoft
I wish
Teams
I
and
can't
for
scrub to
Zoom.
the end of the video, but the end of the
So,
video it shows the controls.
going
You've
back,
seen them
let
on
me
every
give you
webcam where it has
look at it
the
without my filters on.
brightness,
So let me turn off
tint,
my
saturation. I'm
chroma
afraid to
key.
touch those.
And this
I'm
is
afraid
it
to
right
touch
out
those,
of
so
the
I look
box.
kind of pale
Just
in the
plug
video.
and
It's not the
play,
camera's fault, it's
turned
because
it
I'm
on, my
afraid to mess
normal
with them.
lighting,
And here
haven't touched
today,
any
because of my
settings.
lighting, your
This is
color
what
looks
you get
great.
if you
That's what
just
you look like
plug it
in
in,
real
turn
life.
it on,
I look like a
and start talking
Simpson.
into it.
I'm
So
yellow.
let me get my
And I'm
filter
good
back
at
on,
this stuff
and
because
let's go for the
I move the
unboxing.
saturation a
And after
little
the
bit,
unboxing,
but
I
then I
want to
move the
bring up the
contrast
software that
down,
comes
but then I
with
move
it,
the brightness
and we'll
up,
take a
but then I
look
have
at
to
that
move the
as well.
saturation.
Okay,
And I'm
so
playing
we're
this game trying to
unboxing
get
the
myself to look
Expand
green there
Vision
now.
1 personal USB
and
camera.
I
I'm
can't
recording
figure
this
it
on
out.
my
And what I
iPhone just to
want
keep
is to
everything
say,
neutral.
Chat
And opening
GPT,
up the box.
fix my camera settings so I don't look
Alright,
like
the
a
first thing
Simpson,
we
and
see
have the
is
knobs just move themselves and fix it,
you
because
can pause this,
I don't think it's just
and you have
me,
the quick
but
start
I
guide. So I like
never
the fact that it's
ever
printed on
I never ever feel like I'm comfortable with how I look on camera. I always feel like I get the settings wrong.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's interesting. Like, and obviously like, AI is removing, my background, and it's doing, noise cancellation. So, it's always been there in the back doing a whole bunch of wonderful things like transcription and stuff. And so I do think, and Cisco made that point in their keynote about how they've been, using AI for a very long time. I think it just has become front and center when you're more interacting with it, right? So
Yeah.
I think, but I do, fix your video, and yeah, and that's where it's like, I think then it's going to be, fix my video, make me look 10% better than I really do, and they already have that soft
Give me a little
focus
tan.
stuff.
I think I have a
Yeah,
fake tan now.
exactly.
I'm not this tan, but actually I kind of like the tan. So yeah, give me a fake tan.
Right. No, and I think, I think that'll be the interesting thing, as we've already seen, like some of those online generative photographs of situations that didn't actually happen.
Yeah, that's scary.
Right. So there was the less controversial one was, I think, the Pope in the big puffy white coat. Right. So
Yeah.
I guess
I believe that. That was that one I believed.
It looked pretty good, and yeah,
And it wasn't so
stuff,
ridiculous. It was a little so like, why is he wearing that big coat? But it's kind of cool looking. Maybe he liked it. I
Maybe
could.
it was
I believe.
fall. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, big puffy jacket. But
and it is, and we're heading into the Easter weekend, so it seems it's topical. So there you go. So,
but a lot of these, I think, maybe because they're presented to me as, hey, this is fake, just so you know. I first see them as a fake. That was shared for that. That was the longest time between a reveal. Usually you see something and an hour later, someone else on Twitter is like, that's fake. I believe that puffy jacket picture for like days. It was, we were all believing it for days because it just looks so real. The scariest thing I saw a video on Twitter, and it was a guy, a guy like us, pundit kind of guy. And he's like, does a lot of videos. And he's like, this video you're seeing now is 100% AI generated. Here's how I did it. I had ChatGPT write the script. Then I took the script and I put it into a voice AI thing that has been listening to my voice, so it sounds like me. Then he listed all the products. I don't remember the name of the services. Then he went to some video service that has images of him that generated the video, and it looked like you and I look. I mean, it was so real. And he's like, none of this is real. I never recorded this. This isn't actually me. And I'm like, it was amazing, but it was terrifying.
Well, and I think, and so this is the thing, you know, I think it'll be interesting at Enterprise Connect 2024, because this technology, whether it was unified communications, you know, I think people sometimes then forget that it's supposed to drive positive business outcomes. And it will be, you know, and I think originally, you know, unified communications was focused on that, but then it became just about mashing up things like, we can connect all these things and unify them. And many people, and I think a lot of us maybe in the industry, you know, that get enamored with technology forgot that it was supposed to drive positive business outcomes. And this is where I think with AI, it was very exciting. I mean, the whole, you know, the show floor was, I mean, the show was energetic. I mean, outside of AI, just because I think people were, you know, happy to be back together. You know, last year the show was kind of was less attendance. The show floor was smaller. This year, I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm overall, and then that enthusiasm spilled over, some would say hype, into the AI piece. I think next year will be fascinating to see which vendors move forward with real use cases that are driving positive business outcomes. Because if we think about it in the contact center space, there's been a lot of talk about AI for a long time. And yet, most of the chatbots that are deployed, and I think this just goes to show the gap between what's possible and what's deployed. I mean, most of them are still atrocious. Most of them are still like, you know, glorified IVRs that say, are you chatting about this or that? It isn't the conversational where just, why don't you just tell me what your problem is? And so I think, you know, the capabilities outstrip the deployment, and then the hype of the capabilities sometimes are not anchored to positive business outcomes. And I think that over the course of the next year, Enterprise Connect 2024 will have a lot more case studies around the AI, as opposed to, you know, some really slick, you know, marketing videos.
Yeah, we see that with every new technology. We'll you know, but there's a new technology for the camera, and we get a camera and we're like, why is this here? Do I need this? And it's like, we figured out how to do it, and we just had to put it in the product because it's so cool. It's like, okay.
Well, so this cameras, let's talk about, I mean, we're talking about a lot of things, but let's talk about because this is AI powered, the kind of concept of multiple cameras in a room. And, you know, Zoom in their keynote, that was, to me, that was the best part of the keynote. It took them a long time to get to actually showing stuff, but that multi-camera stuff, I mean, Polly has Director AI. I mean, everybody has this multi-camera thing. It's unclear to me how many rooms, you know, you're going to put lots of cameras in. You know, there already a statistic, you know, the vendors will tell you, I don't know, 90% of meeting rooms don't have, you know, any video cameras, which of course they see that as a huge addressable market. And now, you know, they want you to put like multiple cameras in, but there were some pretty impressive AI powered examples that in large rooms would figure out what camera wasn't showing the side of your head or an obscured view of you. I think those were great demos, and you know, that was AI behind the scenes, right? It wasn't the generative AI, but I think we're going to see that. What do you? I mean, David, you obviously play, you know, in this video space much more so than I do.
Yeah, well, I have mixed feelings because multiple cameras already, I'm like, oh, it sounds expensive, it sounds complicated, but we do need to solve the problem, and we could do a great demo of it here, which is when we're in Zoom, oh, actually wrong button. Go. So this is how I look in Zoom.
Right.
This is how you look in Zoom. I'm a little blurry because of the way I'm set up. And if we're in a meeting room, this is how we look in Zoom. So everyone who's from home has this great view. Look at you. You're perfectly centered. You're filling the camera. You look like a newscaster. You know, you're going to get some attention. People are going to take you seriously. You're the boss now. But now you're a tiny little head. You're all the way back compared to I mean, this looks nice for a stream, but in a Zoom box, you would be so tiny compared to everyone else. It's not fair to those of us who actually drove into work that day. We're the heroes. You know, we drove in. We're here in the meeting room so we could shake hands and be together.
Right.
We should look wrong button again. But we should look, here we go. We should look like this. And the one way to do it is what I'm doing here, which is just to have one camera that captures everything and then cuts in frames. The downside of that is this problem. When I zoom in on myself, I'm not doing it right. I'm all pixely and blurry because I didn't set it up well. But another solution is multiple cameras and have one camera on me and one camera on you, or just have them moving around depending on who's talking. Right. It definitely works. It definitely solves a problem. It's definitely cool. I think I need to be convinced it's affordable enough for those 90% of rooms instead of just the top 10% of those 90%.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a good point, which is just because you can do it, and this is like, the kind of the return on investment, right? Like, does the fact that I see, I'm remote and I see the people better in the room, I mean, obviously that is better, but is it better in a material way that justifies making the investment in that room? And then it's like, to your point, what percentage of the rooms? Is it just my main boardroom where, yes, that makes sense? I think the interesting thing, obviously hybrid work, which I'm sick and tired of that. So let's call it flexible work styles.
I like
there was
that
some
better.
debate, and I think the agreement is, work is work regardless of where you do it, and it's going to be more flexible in the future because we've proven it can be done in multiple locations. I think the interesting thing is, a lot of the AI that surfaced, like sentiment and let me catch up on the meeting and give me some background on what is that David just said, give me the background on that. That really works better when you are remote.
Yeah.
So you're smarter when you're actually on a laptop, when you can get some out of band information to explain what's going on. When you're sitting in the meeting room, you're at a disadvantage a little bit, because you can't say, if you don't have a laptop where you can, in a lot of meetings, people say, don't bring your laptops because they're trying to focus on the interaction. But, since we've all been remote and have multiple monitors and you have different information available to you, I mean, you can sometimes have better sales meetings because you've got, all the summary of what the previous discussions or objection handling, an AI, can assist you with that. So it will be interesting to see how these multi-cameras and then who wants to be in those, it's great for the remote people, but arguably the remote people actually have AI-powered advantages that maybe you don't have in the room anymore. We talk about meeting equity, and that the assumption is that the remote person is at a disadvantage. I actually think that is flipped around sometimes.
The pandemic flipped that completely around. Because, it used to be the remote person is remote. They don't have access to all their tools at work. Now we have access to everything. I'm in a meeting every Monday with basically a bunch of friends, people I know in the industry that we're trying to come up with a new product, or we're trying to develop something. It's mostly just to hang out and chat. But during this meeting, everyone else acts like they're in a meeting room. They just kind of sit back and have a conversation. I have two screens. I'm working on my other screen. So someone will bring something up and I'll say, hold on, I have it. And I'll put it behind me with my OBS tricks. And finally, someone said to me, how are you always doing that? Every meeting, whenever we don't know something, you just bring it up behind you. I'm like, I have two monitors and one of them has Google on it. It's just, I'm not a wizard. It's not that, but it's
You're a wizard, David. Yes.
Because I'm acting like I'm working at home, taking advantage of the fact that I'm working at home. And the rest of them, they're acting like they're in a meeting room because they're in a meeting. So they're just kind of sitting there. So yeah, we're definitely more powerful working at home. And I think that leads into the next topic, which is, outside of the AI, one of the trends I'm seeing is the line between work products, office products, and home products. It's not blurred, it's gone. It's completely gone. One thing, we both got a pair of these very nice Poly Voyager Free 60 Plus. Did I get that right? Headset.
It has a long name. I'm going to say yes, because I care. Yes.
I think that's right. And let me bring down my fancy drop stream. I did an unboxing of this as well. If you're interested in this, please check out self-plug. It's my show. I can plug myself. But I did, check out this video unboxing them, and they are absolutely designed to be flexible. You can use them at the office. You can use them at home, and it's designed to be, I'm on meetings all day. I'm comfortable. It's not just, it used to just be, you're only in 1 or 2 meetings a day. You can get headsets with really good quality audio because you don't have to be comfortable. You're only wearing them for 30 30 minutes a day. These you can wear all day, and this has a lot of convenience factors. Obviously, being wireless is nice. The charging, you just put them in a cute little case up there, and they charge. The case itself, you could put on a charger pad. You don't even have to plug it in. I love wireless charging. That's my favorite. I put it on the same little pad that I put my phone on. And the case has a little touchpad, so you can control the volume and stuff without... This control's on here, but come on, that's hard. That's hard to do. It's hard to find a little button. But it's on the control case, and I think it's completely designed as... Get myself out of here. Poly was definitely thinking of flexible, the new, the new normal. This is not... Is it a desktop tool? Is it an office tool? Is it a home worker tool? Yeah. So that's a trend I'm way behind.
Yeah, and one other thing that I really like about that, because I use this on the way home, is the case. You can actually just like plug it into a regular audio jack. And so, for example, when you're on a plane, you plug the case in, and then the case is like the wireless transmitter, so you can watch a movie, on the plane. So I think that, they took kind of... And I do love the display on the case, because it shows you the charging status of both of the earbuds and the case itself. And as you say, you can control your music, you can pause it, change the volume, all of that kind of thing. So they took all of these things and mashed them together into a very functional device. And I say that because I'm using this Poly P21 monitor, and some people don't think it's a big enough size or whatever. But for instance, like, Poly built the lights in and just uses one USB-C, and it's got the charging, the wireless charging right on it. So you can just set your phone on. So I can just set my case on it. I didn't think about that. So it's like, so definitely, and it works great in a home environment because it doesn't have that super wide in the camera view that, so some of the devices, you have a wider view, which is great in the office, but at home, you don't want that wide view to see all your junk that's beside you.
I have to crop this. I'm using the Poly P15, which is meant for meeting rooms. So it's wide. And it's wider than my green screen. So if I don't crop it, you see my walls on the side of my green screen. It's not meant for this environment, but it's the highest quality camera I have. So, and it rests on top of my monitor. So that's what I'm using now. But it's definitely, it's overpowered for home use. This is I'm using more than I need here.
Right. Hey, I did want to say one thing, David, as we get to the end of this segment. Enterprise Connect, I mean, we talked about the technology, we talked about the keynotes, but I mean, one of the fabulous things that, Eric Kraft and his team do is to put on this wonderful opportunity for networking. And I didn't get to spend as much time on the show floor. And if that's a common theme if you talk to the other BC strategies or other analysts, because it's such an opportunity to get together with people that, we haven't seen as frequently as you'd like. And even people from the same organization. A lot of times they use Enterprise Connect, and they either, their team comes down a little bit earlier or stays for some additional days, just because Enterprise Connect is this great opportunity to get people together in person. And I had so many wonderful discussions, met people that I've dealt with for years and haven't ever had the opportunity to be in person. And there was this whole thing about the office needs to be a magnet, not a mandate in terms of getting people to go back. But for me, I mean, Enterprise Connect, more so than any conference, is that magnet to bring people from all over the world really together, because that in-person experience and just, the discussions and the collaboration that happens is just phenomenal. So just props to, Eric and the Enterprise Connect team. And I think for me, it was my 13th year. It's hard to keep track, but you get back to the Gaylord Palms. And since I've been there so many times, it is like coming home, and the alligators are still there. And,
yes,
you're in that biodome. This year, the weather was fantastic, but even if it's not, you never really notice because it feels like you're outdoors, but you're indoors.
It's a perfect location.
Overall, it was just, I just love the people aspect. So I didn't want to miss that as we talked about all these different, technology items as well.
Yeah, I want to double down on that. Whenever anyone asks what was my favorite part of the show, talking to my fellow analysts and my friends that work for the vendors, it's I hate traveling. I'm the virtual events guy. I invented this so I could be sitting next to my friends instead of having to travel to be next to them. I really hate traveling, and the sessions, they'll be online. I can watch them. I can get all the information. The keynotes, they'll be online. I can get all the information from the keynotes. The vendor announcements, I got them before the show. They had briefings with us. I knew everything was going to be on the floor before it was there. So yeah, the sessions are great. The keynotes are great. The technology is great, but I can get all that remotely, and I still go, and I do not regret going. The big thing I get out of going, not the only thing, it's nice to be able to touch the devices and see them as opposed to just hearing about them, but is the people. Right. My competitors that I see more as friends and colleagues, and it's a lot of people who work for these companies that I've just known them for so many years. I've known them from 3 different companies now. People move around in this industry, and they're good people, and it's good just to not just let me catch up on your latest headphones, but have you been? We don't always do that when we meet on Zoom and Teams. We have 45 minutes for this meeting. Let's get into the topic. But Enterprise Connect, there's a lot more. How you been? And I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, all in all, I mean, like you, I mean, it's well worth the trip. And I think that's for anybody that had the privilege and opportunity to attend this year. I think that universally that's what I'm hearing. And certainly I'm looking forward to Enterprise Connect 2024. And seeing the people, and then seeing how the technology, has evolved.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of my very few there's a lot of shows that I might go to if I can talk myself into it, and this one is just no debate. This one in Infocom, I just go.
It makes sense.
I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. I mean, there's so much more we saw on the show already, but this has been a long episode. We usually keep them short, but I've just been enjoying the conversation.
Well, thank you. And I didn't even use. I felt like coming into it. With Tim Banting normally, with the English accent, I was thinking, oh, do I have to do an English accent?
It really does add something to the show.
So I'm glad that I forgot about that. So,
anything else you want to shout out or say before we head out?
No, I thank you for the opportunity to kind of go through this, and Tim, I hope you're enjoying your vacation, and thank you for, hopefully I did you proud by filling in for your normal spot.
Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care.